Hello there. I really missed doing these videos, even though my computer gave me so much trouble I almost gave up. As you may have noticed, I'm trying something new today. I hope this TTS voice isn't annoying. Anyway, keep your eye out for another character creating contest. Thank you very much for your attention, and without further ado, let's get to the new Fowlclan kitties. First up is a cat who gave me a bit of a headache multiple times. Since this little guy was the first time I ever had the same prefix on different characters. So I tried to make their designs very different. And by that I mean, I based his design on male sparrows, whereas the other cat was based on female ones. It is now official lore time. Sparrowsong was born to a queen named Curacao Spring alongside two littermates. However, as this is warrior cats, one day, an ill loner came to Fowlclan. He begged them for help, saying he had gotten ill when he went to the Swallowgaze for food. But they were terrified of that illness, so they chased off the loner. As time went by, Fowlclan cats began falling prey to that same illness. It soon proved itself extremely deadly. Amongst the victims were Sparrowpaw's mother and his two littermates. The illness took many lives. It also made the survivors go hungry as the clan was shaken to its core. In those grim times, no cat had it worse than Sparrowpaw. He lost his mom and sisters. He suddenly found himself utterly alone. As the whole clan recovered and moved on, he thought there must have been something wrong with him for still feeling so heavy and sad. He thought he was useless, so one day he ran away. He thought no one would come look for him. Needless to say, he was wrong. That day, he understood that even though most cats weren't related to him by blood, they could still care for him like family. Also, did you notice how much I struggled with his markings? Lol. I even revisited his design some days later to fix things that were bothering me, as you can see here. In the end, I'm mostly pleased with how he turned out. I may revisit his design sometime in the future, though. And with that, Sparrowsong is done. Up next is a cat whose story is closely tied to Sparrowsong's. But before we get into why that is, let us start at the start. Swallowgaze was born to Harpy Swoop, and as soon as he opened his eyes, everyone knew he was just a small baby copy of Harpy Swoop. And soon, he learned he should just be a copy of his dad. Nothing but excellence was expected of him. He was the favored heir of the hawk. Strong, smart, loyal, resilient, he was all but happy. With all the attention he got, he thought he should be happy and grateful. But he just grew more and more bitter. As an apprentice, he looked down on everyone. He considered none to be worthy of his time. You see, apprentices of the hawk get their training separately from the other average cats. So he truly lived in his own little world. That is, until that illness took so many lives. He was forced to understand that a clan can't be made from a single cat. Quick pause from Lore Time TM. I incorporated the unique forked swallowtail on his design as stripes wherever I could. That's something I really wanted to do but struggled with at first. I also struggled to incorporate the colors of a swallow on a cat without making them look muddy and off. I quite like how he ended up, but again, might revisit his design sometime. Back to Lore Time TM. When the illness started to subside, things went back to normal. At face level, Swallowpaw was more observant than most from that much time he spent looking down on others. And he saw right through everyone's facades. It was at that time he was forced to interact more with the one other non-hawk apprentice that had survived the illness. He wouldn't admit it, but he grew fond of Sparrowpaw's company. Which is why he panicked when Sparrow was suddenly declared missing. That was the first time he swallowed his pride and openly admitted to care about someone. He found Sparrowpaw before anyone else did and startled him with a cat hug. He convinced Sparrow to come back. These two eventually became mates. And he's done. Next up is Swallowgaze's brother and littermate. Thrushbelly is a cat originally made just because Swallow needed littermates. And because I noticed Thrush's colors fit right into the Harpy Swap kit palette. But contrary to my expectations, Thrushbelly just became a little guy. His hobbies include eating and napping. Just like your average house cat. He can actually fight. But only if you steal his prey or something. As you may have imagined already, his kithid was a bit of a mess. Cats were extra rigid about his behavior due to him being one of the two only heirs of the hawk. As their future leader, they expected a cat well versed in the ways of the warrior. Fierce, noble, loyal. Instead, this is what they got. No matter what Hawkswoop tried, he just couldn't get his son to act properly or take any interest in leadership. Trushpaw was also oblivious to the difference between members of the hawk and the rest of the clan. He was often seen sharing tongues with elders, warriors, and other apprentices. Much to his aunt's dismay. Swallowpaw was often bitter about how carefree his brother got to be. He slacked off while Swallow was training. And cats just seemed okay about it, somehow. Truth is, they'd given up on Thrush long ago when they realized there was no way to embarrass him or correct his behavior. Plus, he wasn't really hurting anyone. And he was just insanely charismatic. He spoke to everyone and had no prejudices. And he was too dumb to even attempt to lie. So a lot of cats felt very at ease with him. And with a lot of time and frustrated attempts at changing Thrush, Harpy Swap just realized that silly chubby friendly cat had a place in the clan after all. A happy ending achieved via caring more for food than opinions. Here he is. Next up is our first apprentice. He's also Thrushbelly's adopted son. And he was actually found abandoned as a kit with a strong fox stench. Ducksong found him crying and brought him to camp. The leaders weren't very keen on welcoming an outsider. But in the end they realized such a small kit could be brought up to be a proper Fowlclan cat. Belly had always been interested in being a dad but never in taking a mate or actually having kits. So this was truly a golden opportunity for him. Harpy Swap was apprehensive about Thrush raising a kid alone, so he helped bring up Pidgeonkit. He was distant and untrusting at first because Pigeon wasn't Fowlclan born. But soon enough his grandpa instincts took over and he became the most doting grandfather to ever step on the planet. Unfortunately for all of us, this resulted in Pigeon growing up to be a spoiled brat. He's an overconfident cat who never ever takes the blame, even if it was his fault. because his grandpa makes it so there are never any real consequences to his bad behavior. And even though he's been an apprentice for like barely a moon, he's already gotten a nicked ear from fighting a bit too hard during training. He constantly needs everyone to know that he's the best apprentice to ever have graced Fowlclan. In spite of all his bragging and hubris, he's not an entirely bad cat. In fact, he generally tries his hardest to uphold the warrior code. He's just really annoying while doing so. Anyways, enough rambling about lore and not enough about the designing process. At first, I thought catifying a pigeon would be easy. It was very much not. I couldn't really do the green or purple tint city pigeon feathers have on a cat without it looking strange. And making a darker chest would just look off with my other designs. So I improvised the whole thing. The only thing I knew I wanted to do was a darker muzzle. I made his design, and something looked incredibly off. So I came back to it some days later and changed some things, as you can see in this clip. I'm glad to have done it. I'm now much more pleased with how he looks. I gave him some more white spots to help with the whole composition. Truly a fabulous cat. And with that, let's move on to this video's last cat. It is time for what became my favorite design out of this bunch. Also, he's Pidgeonpaw's mentor. Much to his dismay, lol. He's also Sparrowsong's dad. Much to his dismay, he did not want kits. He has no patience for kitten antics and immaturity, for example. He just kinda expects kits to be small adults. He distanced himself from his kits after losing his patience with them a couple times. It was only after the illness that he began trying to be there for Sparrow. He was still as impatient as before. Needless to say, his scolding did not help his grieving kit. On a lighter note, Kestrelwind got his suffix because he's a skilled tree climber. And since Fowlclan's territory are woodlands, those who get good at leaping from tree to tree seem to be able to fly like birds. It also makes them wonderful at hunting squirrels and surprising other prey from above. Please notice how I throw away the old design and start from scratch. This is something I recommend to anyone who may be struggling with art block. You don't need to delete the old version though, it can often still help you. Anyway. Also, if you were wondering how Kestrel treats Pidgeonpaw, let's just say Harpy Swoop is always watching them. Menacingly. Kestrel is also notoriously distrustful of outsiders. He's been known to chase loners until quite after the territory's borders. He was such a challenging cat, but I love his character and design. And he's done.